Roblox has a notoriously clean aesthetic. Looking at the majority of games on the front page, they encapsulate this identity that Roblox has maintained for the most part.
Hey man, how's it going?
A little bit traumatizing, I won't lie.
Yeah, why are you
Oh,
just
you
in your
talk now.
boxers?
Hi, Sag Daddy.
Okay.
I didn't want to be there.
Even looking into popular games like Combat Warriors that involve getting your limbs blown off and blood raining down from the sky, it still retains that smooth look that Roblox is known for. On a completely unrelated note, Octic is a Roblox developer who's gained popularity for his edgy and darker themed Roblox games. Not so dark and edgy in narrative, seeing as there really isn't one in his games due to how subdued it is, but more towards his style. His first two games, Confinement and Containment, play into each other and push the envelope for how gritty Roblox can be.
Confinement. Only 4 people playing it? This shit ass. I hope I'm not confined. Oh no!
Of course, these games ultimately failed, considering the level design of both games are extremely linear and feature long walking segments that are supposed to feel ominous, but just are actually tedious.
6 is 9. I get it. It's like sex. I love sex.
The monster designs and animations from Confinement are straight up ripped from Dead Space, Dark Souls, and Bloodborne. Do you guys fuck with Dead Space?
I do love Dead Space. I hope they pop out of the walls.
I hope they make a Dead Space 3 remake. And
Oh, it actually is just Dead Space. Wow.
And the fighting gameplay feels extremely clunky due to the ambiguous and awkward nature of Roblox mixed with the razor-tight attack animations of the Souls franchise. Max, you played the DLC for Dark Souls 3, right?
Yeah, beat it.
Oh, okay. Do you fuck with the Corvian settlement?
I can't say I did. I can't say I did.
From Ashes of Ariandel, you didn't fuck with the Corvian settlement?
Ah, shit.
there it is! Darkeater Midir! This is good.
I like the sound design. Regardless of these issues, they both succeeded at style. What Octic did do really well was creating a gritty feel for his games. The camera is wobbly and amateur. I feel like I'm gonna
Keep
vomit
yourself
with this
safe.
camera. The lighting is dark and grainy, and for what original monster designs Octic did work on, he succeeded in making them at least look bizarre and otherworldly. Alright, so this Octic guy makes weird horror games on Roblox that go against the style of smoothness by using out-of-place assets mixed with jarring cinematography. Now, what if I told you that he now also suddenly had good gameplay to back up those visuals? Brick time! Fuck. Alright, so now that I've got your attention, you gotta eat your greens first. We'll be back to Roblox, but for right now I want to tell you about a video game that's touted as one of the most brutal and disturbing of all time, Manhunt. Developed by Rockstar North and published by Rockstar Games in 2003, Manhunt is a stealth survival horror game in which you participate in a snuff film and brutally execute enemies. You play as James Earl Cash, being guided by a sadistic director in Carcer City. Released originally to generally positive feedback, Manhunt eventually suffered from controversy as politicians and legislatures once again pushed back against violent video games. US Representative Joe Baca, which sounds like a really bad Yo Mama joke, goes on the record saying it's telling kids how to kill someone, and it uses vicious, sadistic, and cruel methods to kill. Although I do believe violence does have a place in video games, it's hard not to see their angle. Executing enemies causes the camera to suddenly gain a VHS filter as it wobbly films the execution. Your character suffocates a gang member with a plastic bag, almost systematically, seeing as just earlier you brutalized another man. Eventually, due to unfortunate circumstances, the game was pulled commercially. TRAVERSAL is a Roblox stealth survival horror game created by Octic. It features a lone protagonist who sets out against random individuals who have been sent to kill you. You're guided by a mysterious character as you brutally dismantle the forces that have been sent out for you, using the clunky combat but ultimately relying upon the janky stealth mechanics instead to render your enemies into mincemeat. God, doesn't that sound familiar?
Oh, I guess we're dead already.
TRAVERSAL has an introduction very similar to my own life. Waking up in a Denny's wearing nothing but an orange jumpsuit from the previous night. Wait, what the? Regardless, it's never really explained why you're here. Octic has always used cryptic settings and bizarre character design, so to make sense out of something like this is kind of futile. Your serene prison of shattered glass is interrupted by your savior. This bizarre figure wears a red mask with the only features being its nose and lips. It draws a pretty interesting point that literally every single entity in this game wears a mask, obviously, except for you, unless you want to support the creator, so you can wear a mask that looks like the smiley fries you would get in a school cafeteria. Some masks do have meaning though. The lamb mask is from the horror movie You're Next. It's a horror movie that exists in the home invasion subgenre. The smiling mask is a nod to the Purge franchise, a series I don't really think I need to explain outside of the dystopian setting, and the first one also having its hand in the home invasion subgenre. Other masks having ties to the Dark Knight, with nods to the mask that the robbers wore at the very introduction of that movie. Outside the obsession with masks that this game has, it also just feels grimy to look at. Traversal seems to have some layer of muck buildup everywhere on it, and even the player's skin seems to have a texture that makes you look like a Pringles chip. Why are we so crusty, bro? We look like fucking Pringles. Outside of the nasty aesthetic though, which is something that Arctic is exceedingly good at, something that Arctic isn't particularly good at, typically, is the overall gameplay of a game. Traversal's combat can be summed up in a singular word: clunky. There's a few weapons in Traversal, and somehow they all feel horrible.
Please be so funny. Damn it. That's crazy.
Oh, wow.
That's
even more crazy. This is more crazy.
That is,
Running up and fighting an enemy feels awful, seeing as your slow swings seemingly always get parried, you get punished by your comically small stamina bar, and each weapon feels like you're slapping a knight in full-plated armor with a pool noodle. There's two of them on me? Alright. However, this is almost certainly intentional. The masks, as previously mentioned, all have ties to mercenaries, trained assassins, or just sadistic criminals. Meanwhile, your bald Roblox character number 5002. For better or for worse, when Arctic was making this game, Manhunt inspired or not, something Traversal seemingly had a lot in common with Manhunt were its stealth mechanics. You're meant to fight in the shadows, you're meant to assassinate people, you're meant to sneak around and smash people's heads in and then sit in the shadows while everybody else seemingly doesn't give a fuck. Manhunt being a 2003 game, the stealth mechanics are extremely loose, and here in Traversal it's really no different. I guess I wasn't really honest with you guys in that regard. You're not bald Roblox man number 5002, you're actually retina explosion man, where an enemy can be staring dead at you, but as long as your big toe was in a shadowy area, they suddenly get -10 to all perception checks. Which loops back to what I said earlier about the combat being clunky. You're not meant to fight up close and personal.
so from what I've seen or heard of it, this is a stealth game. Stealth horror game.
Traversal has a tone setter at the very beginning. When this masked individual brings you a knife and you break out, what's the first thing you're tasked with? Performing a stealth kill.
Okay.
Delightful. I can't begin to describe how rewarding it feels to play Traversal and slowly move through these winding layouts and dismantle the mercenaries that stand in your way. Sure, the game gives you a parry, kick, and other superficial combat features you might see in other games. However, this is for when things go horribly wrong. You don't have a strong attack, a special attack, a combo button, or anything that would even promote taking the enemy head on. Just what's necessary to play defensively. The introductory area to Traversal, I would say, is the most difficult. Obviously, due to the fact you're not accustomed to the new controls, but also due to the high enemy density and the lack of shadows to hide in. Shadows do exist in this funeral home, but they're sparse and leave you like a fish out of water when you need to jump from one into another. Very quickly, you're able to find the escape, but something that this game does that I really love and that Roblox doesn't capitalize enough on is objective focus style gameplay. It plops you down in a room and says you need to find a crowbar. That's it. It doesn't attempt to show you a massive tutorial, it doesn't give you a singular linear pathway to victory, it tells you how to win, but then it leaves you to your own devices. You could stalk the halls searching for the person with the crowbar, executing them, and then leaving, causing minimal damage and or threat to yourself, or you can be like me, who slowly moves through the entire building and cleaves someone for stepping so much as a singular centimeter into my personal bubble. Or you could even find the secret katana and go ham while your friend tries to find a way out. Katana, you fucking weirdo. Regardless of what you choose, you'll end up outside eventually. As I mentioned before, Arctic is really good at setting a tone for his games. Walking outside, you're met with a depressing and messy sky, reminiscent of older sandboxes from Roblox horror games. Personally, it's a nostalgic feeling, but it's obviously also a dark feeling as you move through the outside fields and eventually reach a passage. This is where you're really turned loose and get to enjoy the game. The funeral home is where the game teaches you how to play and also gets to beat your teeth in. The passage is a short level, but it's more focused on throwing bottles and bricks to distract enemies and blitz through the place. This is where you can also start to realize how outrageous the stealth in this game is. Running up on somebody, throwing a brick at their head, and then just standing in front of them as they scratch their head. Passage is over just about as quickly as it started, and you'll wind up back outside once again. However, this time leading to a large, wealthy looking manor that sits entirely alone against the slate walls that border it. Using what you've learned from Passage, it's not hard to distract people and break bones before getting inside. Another thing I want to add that I only briefly mentioned was the mechanic of using weapons as tools to open some of these doors. That brings up the point that outside of the crowbar and knife, everything else is obsolete. The knife and crowbar stealth kill just as easily as everything else, but they also have the added benefit of being able to open certain locked off doors. Anyways, there's the main door to get further into the compound, but if you were to explore a bit more, you can find a chainsaw and oh shit. Shit's about to get real, Xander.
What the fuck?
Come here, you bunny bitch. Oh, I killed him? After you're done attending the Silent Hill fan club meetup, the rest of the stronghold awaits. Obviously, more brick throwing shenanigans, but it does lead to a much larger area containing a camera. It's a gimmick area where if you stand in the light, you get jumped. Even deeper is the last leg of the game. This final area is where your skills get tested the most. In previous locations, they were either multi-layered in the case of the funeral home, or at least spread out and somewhat sparse in the case of Passage. However, now that you've hit this location, you don't see much of that anymore. The enemies seem like they've doubled. You're in a much more cramped space. Spots to hide in the darkness seem just as sparse, if not more than the funeral home. Obviously, it's not an Olympic task to escape. You just need to take advantage of the AI's short memory span and abuse cutting corners to break line of sight so they reset, doubling back to get a cheeky stealth execution before rinsing and repeating. Using your crowbar, that I mentioned earlier, was the best weapon for moments like this to break out of the last door and to drop down into this large, almost parking garage-esque building. Traversal is short, really short. Out of all the horror games I've covered on this channel, Traversal can be beaten in about half the time. A first playthrough taking maybe an hour at most, and then repeat runs on about 20 minutes. Regardless of how short the timer is, Traversal sticks out in the landscape of Roblox horror games. Time and time again, Roblox horror games pop up from the framework, but at most offer a different aesthetic, something that I've seen especially prevalent with the existence of PS1 and Public Combo styled horror games. However, Octic's style is wholly his own, keeping his edgy, grimy looks from previous experiences, but additionally doubling down on the combat aspect and perfecting it. If you haven't yet, I recommend Traversal. New levels are supposedly in the works, and Octic even has his own channel in which he posts small gameplay tests or just other pieces of his work. Well, that's enough from me then, so I'll see you guys in another 12 years.
Show that this
So
guy.
did 3 not equal
Wait,
10?
watch this.
Right. I'm getting paid from this video, right? For having.
Yeah, we're
fuck
getting
up.
compensation, right?
That's
And
like
now
the
it's time for a word for our
compensation.
sponsors, Manscaped. Imagine my smooth balls.
Imagine my
Shaft.
smooth.
It looks like the Slender Man if you were a lesbian.
Would their name be Slenderman?
What if he was a part of a car and he was called Fenderman?
What if he was something that he just gave to a friend so they could give it back to him later, called Lenderman?
What if he was
What
a
if he was
robot?
the opposite of a Barbie doll and he was a Kenderman? What if he was a writing utensil and he was called Penderman?
Yeah, what if he laid eggs and he was called Henderman?
What if he was 9 plus 1 and he was called Tenderman? What if he was really at peace with his life and he was called Zenderman?
What if he loved chicken and he was called Tenderman?
What if he loved the fucking $5 biggie bag and he was called Wenderman?
What if he really liked drugs? It's called Xanderman. I don't know.
I am actually going to mute all three of them.
I consumed him. I consumed him.
Okay.